Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Café con Leadership. Hope you guys are having a blessed day. I am so excited for today's guest. Today we have Oscar Garcia. Welcome, Oscar.
Hello, hello.
Yes,
Gracias.
yes, I'm so happy to have you. You have a consulting company, you're a leader, you're a speaker, you do a lot of things in the area that we're always talking about. And I would love for you to share, like with the audience, you know, general, like this whole conversation about ways that we can improve, things that we need to be doing, or what's out there that maybe individuals are struggling with, that maybe we also struggle with, and how can we start having those more of those conversations. So first, I want to start with give us a little bit of background on you, Oscar. OG.
Yeah. I know. You know what? Let me, because you just reminded me of something. So growing up, kids used to make fun of my name. They used to call me Oscar Mayer Wiener, and Oscar the Grouch and all that. And so I hated my name. And then as I got older, kind of more into middle school, teen years, there were some gangs in where I live, where I've grown up, but not that many. But anyways, I mean, I started hearing the phrase OG. I'm like, what is OG? OG. And of course, original gangster, right? So then, because my name is Oscar Garcia, I'm like, guess what? Today, I'm going to embrace it. I'm the OG. I'm the real OG. I'm the real Oscar Garcia. But anyways, so yeah, a little over 5 years ago, I launched Speeda Consulting, and we focus on two areas. One, obviously the consulting work. More specifically, we focus on community relations, workforce development. And then from the training standpoint, two main areas. I do training in career development and then also social selling. And so I teach people how to use LinkedIn, how to create a professional brand, how to network. Nowadays, because of the pandemic, is how to network virtually. And then also some strategies on finding your job or your next opportunity. And then from a sales standpoint, it's how do you utilize social media to sell? So those are the two things that our company does. And I've been fortunate enough. I've just started from nothing, and now as we're wrapping up this year, I've been fortunate enough now that I've done trainings. I train professionals, over 12,000 professionals across 5 continents, because I am fully bilingual as well. So that's an added advantage for me as well.
For sure. I want to get into a lot of that stuff. What is your background, your ethnic? Like, give us further back than 5 years.
Yeah. Let's go back. So I was Mexican, and I was born in California. A month after I was born, we moved back to Mexico. My parents were from the state of Zacatecas. Lived there until I was 5, and then my parents, like a lot of immigrants, a lot of Mexicanos, they decided that they wanted to come back to California for about a year, save money, and then go back home. Well, that going back home never happened, and we ended up in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is where I still live. In fact, my kids were born here in specifically in Mountain View. For those people that don't know Mountain View, today our claim to fame is that that's where Google headquarters is located, and a lot of other tech companies here. So I've seen a lot of changes here in Silicon Valley, but yeah, that's a little bit about my background.
I love it. What are like some of the things, like in consulting or in social media, in all of that? Like, what are some of the things that you feel people struggle with the most?
Yeah, I'm going to break it down kind of generational. Okay, so first let me talk about kind of my generation. In about 4 or 5 months, I'm going to be 52 years old. I went to to college with a typewriter. I didn't grow up with the internet. I remember back in the day, AOL mailing a bunch of the CD discs, so you can get your email account and all that type of stuff. And one of the things that I noticed with our generation is that we're obviously not techie, but I think sometimes we use the fact that we're not techie as an excuse to not know how to, whether it's market ourselves, brand ourselves, Whether it's today with the pandemic, one of the downsides, there's been many downsides, but one of the downsides today from the pandemic is that I feel that there's this influence gap in that minorities that are in corporate America, which is still a small percentage, those that are in the past, pre-COVID, you would be invited to go speak at a conference or be on a piano, live event. Well, COVID has done away with live events, and now you're having to do like what we're doing today, virtually. Well, many of my generation, we're not used to that virtual. And so we're not really active on social media. We feel uncomfortable as it is, talking to a silly little camera. So guess what happens to our message? We don't hear it. And I'm one of those believers, okay, that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, because if I have learned how to embrace technology, you can, and anyone else can. The younger generation, okay, those Gen Zs and the millennials, the challenge that I see with them is that they there's this imposter syndrome feeling. And that is that, I'm not qualified, or I don't know if I, deserve that seat at the table, et cetera, and so forth. And there is still this lack of belief in ourselves and our ability to be able to kick ass in whatever it is that we do. And so those are kind of the two things that I see out there.
Wow. Yes. I mean, like the technology, I never actually broke it down by age group, that's such a great way to put it, because it's true. I see, and me, I'm 43 and I'm like fully, I embrace technology, but I see that in some of the people that I coach as well. Yeah. It's just, I can't do it, just do it for me kind of thing mindset. Yeah. And while that's good, it's also important that we do embrace and learn to manage ourselves online. Today's world, I always tell people, you can't go on and build a brand if you are not on social media.
Right.
It just doesn't exist. What do you do with, do you have, and I love that you focus on career specifically, but what do you do with people that are like, do you take them through the process of learning? What is that process?
Yeah. So my whole why I do what I do from a professional standpoint, a business standpoint, is that I empower others so opportunities come to them. So, and what does that mean? What that means is, you remember back in high school, senior year, when, some of our friends were getting courted, especially like those that were like athletes, okay, or like super brainiacs, okay, and colleges or universities were trying to recruit them to go to their school and maybe give them full ride scholarship and all that. I remember that. I had some friends, right, and we would think, well, of course, Oscar, because that person is like, a track star, or a football player, or really good again in science. And I'm like, no, you're right. I mean, they're talented. But let me ask you this. When you are applying for a job, are you not telling that employer that you are the best candidate? Of course you are. Then why isn't that employer coming to you to recruit you? And the number one reason is because we don't know how to market ourselves. So I teach people how to create a professional brand, how to create that online presence, how to build and nourish relationships, not just reach out to people when you need a job. Okay, how to be able to create that thought leadership, or another way to think is how you can be seen as the town mayor online, as the expert, as the go-to. So, for example, if I need someone to speak about leadership, I mean, you want Sandra to be top of mind, at least be the one, two, maybe third person on someone's mind, so that they can reach out to you. And so there's these various steps that I walk people through so they can achieve that. And I'm going to tell you something. You know where that comes from is the fact that I'm an introvert. That's my natural personality, because I hate freaking sales. I hate begging a client, to buy from me. I hate filling out a resume. I hate interviewing. I hate doing all that stuff. But it's necessary. I got to put food on the table, okay? So what I did is, over the years, I'm like, okay, if I'm an introvert and I don't like doing all these things, there's got to be a different way to be able to attract opportunities. And that's what I came up and what I shared with you. Those are the steps that I take people through.
That's great. I think most people are introverts. I mean, people think, oh, you're so outgoing, which I am when I'm out in public. But I got to tell you, this COVID thing, like, it's like, oh, I got to run to the store, or oh, I got to go get that.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happened. I don't even want
Yeah.
to.
No, I totally do. I totally get you because it's the same thing. I mean, like, my brother lives not that far, I go visit him, or my aunt also, within 5 minutes of each other. But, there are days where I'm just at home all day and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, we gotta be that way for a little bit. What do you think? Like, how do you help someone walk through the mindset shifting process? Like, most people embrace the fact that they have to make internal changes themselves? Like, do you have to have those conversations with them? Like, what's that?
Yeah.
And is it hard for someone to really embrace it and say, okay, I need to change habits, change the way I'm thinking?
Oh, it is very hard. And I tell you, one of the ways that I help people is by sharing my own story, my own vulnerabilities. Because, see, here's the thing. In order to help someone change, you ultimately have to have some kind of a deeper relationship. They got to trust you, and vice versa, and so forth. And so part of the process of developing that relationship is sharing your vulnerabilities, your screw ups. And because then people kind of, they realize, like, oh, you know what, this guy's just like me, or okay, I can relate to this part of it. And then they begin to open up as well. So, you and I are now connected on LinkedIn. And, if you look at some of my posts, a lot of the things that I share, it's my story, kind of what I've gone through. And then there's some kind of a lesson. So that's one thing. The other thing, is that for people themselves is, one of the things that I also tell is, like, LinkedIn is just a tool. It is like a pen. It is like a screwdriver. It is a tool. That's it. Okay. In order to know how to use that tool and have the confidence to use that tool, you have to work in yourself as well. I just did a post not that long ago, I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 days ago, where I talked about the challenges of why many of us fail to learn or implement what we learn. And it is because we learn something, and first of all, very few of us actually apply it. We just learn it and just let it sit there. The few that do apply it, we run into some challenges. We're nervous, we're fearful, but we go ahead and do it. And then we probably don't get the results, and then we give up. And instead, what we need to do is learn, apply, modify, make some changes, apply again, and keep learning. And it's just a circle. And so, like, for me personally, the fact that again, I'm an introvert, it has taken me 25 years to get out of my shell. It's taken me a long time, but you know what? I'm not a quitter. And so just taking those steps, like I said, one, sharing your own story, your own vulnerability. And then number two, walking people through their own challenges, identify what those are, what are those roadblocks, and then helping them overcome those roadblocks in through different techniques and so forth is, I think, important.
Yeah, I love that you said that about when we share our own vulnerabilities. It's like we give permission to other people to share theirs and to be vulnerable themselves. Because people see, like, how we're connected is just it's a beautiful, majestic thing, of our spirituality. And people don't put those two dots together. Like, we are all the same. We're all carrying some form of baggage. We're all having experienced something that was hurtful or traumatic. We've all been through it. If we just understood that about each other, even the person that's interviewing across the room,
right.
I've gone to interviews, and like, I'm confident in what I know, so I'm always going there to interview somebody else. And whenever I go to an interview, but I always look at the person that's across the table and I think, I wonder what they've gone through. I wonder what suffering they've experienced. And when you start looking at people like that, when that's like I think you start, like, empathy just flows, because you start to meet someone, or even if somebody is like, like mean or anything, I always think, God, man, what did that person go through that made them that way?
Yes. we go through our 20s and 30s, sometimes comparing ourselves to other people and being envious of what they have or what they've accomplished. And then we get older and we realize we're all screwed up. That's your point. Like, hey, man, this person's probably going through some crap here.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's true. It's true. So we are going to hit 2021. And we got a lot. I feel very hopeful for 2021. I feel we've learned a lot from 2020. We've had to pivot. We've had to change. But I believe that 2021 is where we're going to have to learn to change again. We don't know what that road lies ahead, but we have to change to really create the life that we really want to live and to see, our communities rise and see just, we've had a rough couple years, to say the least. Not just last year, but I mean, this past year. But what ideas do you have maybe for 2021 to get people into the mindset of, whether you're looking for a job, this is what we need to prepare, for, or in any way. What are your thoughts for the coming year?
Yeah, you know what? You're right about 2021. I also do feel hopeful. And part of that hope that I feel, one is obviously with the from a practical standpoint, the fact that the vaccine is now rolled out and so forth. And so we have that, thank God. It is going to take several months, who knows, maybe the entire year for, the masses to be vaccinated and so forth. But that's going to open, quote unquote, get us back to some kind of normalcy. That's such a word. And, so I am hopeful from that standpoint. I'm also hopeful because people like you and I, to use an analogy, is we have been going to the gym, to the emotional gym, to the business gym. We've been trying different things. We didn't just sit on our rear ends waiting for things to change back to the way they used to. And like I say, if you are going to, if January 2021 is a marathon, when should you have started to prepare for that marathon? Right now? December? No. Back when the pandemic started. And so that's why I'm also hopeful, because my ass, as soon as March 16 hit and we went into shelter in place, 2 days later, I jumped on. I did my very first webinar, sucked on it, doing it. I remember my good friend called me up afterwards and like, how did you think you did, Oscar? I'm like, I don't think I did. He's like, yeah, dude, you sucked. But you know what? I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. Kept going to the gym. So that's the other reason I'm hopeful. Now, as far as your question in terms of what are some of the things that I see, career related and, and leadership and so forth, I think remote work is still going to be with us at least again for next year. So as a job seeker, as a professional, we got to get comfortable with the technology. We already talked about social media, but one of the things that I share with people a lot, and very few people take me up on offer, and I know because it's scary, and I tell them, do a video resume. Because through a video, people can see your personality. Because that's the only way we can see our people's personality right now is online. It's like you and I. We have never, ever physically met. I mean, back prior to this, it probably would have been weird, like, why are you talking to Sandra? Like, where is she? Like, why are you talking to Oscar? And today, it's like we get to know each other. Like, seriously, like, I honestly feel like we're brothers and sisters.
Me too.
I mean, you think of that, but it's a skill and a level of comfort that we have to get used to. The other piece of it too is that I think also in the new year, as a job seeker and professional, we really need to be focused on developing these leadership skills, are internal, because as I mentioned earlier, I mean, these tools are all great, but if we don't know how to build those relationships, how to network virtually, or if we don't know how to communicate in a way, when we share a post, like I'll tell you something. One of the things that it just drives me crazy is when I see people say, I was honored to speak at blah, blah, blah. Because here's the thing. Of course you should be honored that you spoke. But me as your follower on social media, do I give a crap that you are honored? I want to know, what was that talk about? What is there a message that I can walk away from that talk that you did? because it's not about you. That post is not about you. It's about your audience. And so, see, these are all things of leadership, building relationships that I really feel we need to focus. And the truth is, it's not new. I'm preaching stuff that has been around for centuries. We sometimes need to get reminded to do them.
Absolutely. You brought up so many good points. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could be here for a long time. But some of the things that you mentioned, like even when it comes to like job seekers and building our presence online, and you were talking about how did you say it? Just like the getting used to the programs themselves, or doing a video interview, that process. Right. Like I've had conversations with people. I'm like, just do a video. Like it's just record. And there's hesitancy. People judge themselves hardest, like yes. We are our own worst critics. But, I've seen people share videos and I'm like, that's awesome. Share it, and like you said, and I love that you share that story, and you shared that story with me before, that you did your first webinar and you sucked, but you did it, and you're not like, you improve. You can't yes. get better at anything until you suck at it at first.
Yes, right.
Like I always wonder, like people want to come, and I think that innately, maybe a couple of years ago, likewise, you don't want to do something until you know that it's going to be awesome and that people are going to receive it the way we mean it. That is so hard to do in this virtual world.
That was part of that was one of the things that held me back. I used to be a perfectionist. I used to be like, the type that, if you ever put together IKEA furniture and you look at the instructions, all there are, there's just a bunch of drawings, okay? But I would like try to find the written instructions to put IKEA furniture together. That's how anal I was. And then life happens and you don't do anything, right? Back then, my kids were young, and so they got sick, or my parents got sick, or I got, because I worked in the tech industry for startups, so every year and a half I was getting laid off. So then I get laid off, and, my focus just switched, right, to other higher priorities, and then I never did anything. And today, that's why it's like, what? We're just going to put it out there, and we're going to work on it and refine it, et cetera, and so forth.
Yeah. I love that, because like when I started or did my first video, I'm like, this is gonna, I like had to mentally prepare. Like, I'm not going to like it. It's going to suck. I have to post, and once I just did that a couple of times, I got out of my head, like, okay, I have to accept the fact that it's going to suck. And I have to be okay with that, whether it does or doesn't matter. But I know that my self-judgment is going to say, I can't even listen to myself. And most people have a hard time listening to their own voice. Recording yes. it's some stigma. There's a great announcer, Mauro Ranallo, sports announcer, and he is like amazing, and he shared something that I saw a couple years ago in his documentary that says he can't listen to himself. He thinks he's horrible. I'm like, this guy is amazing. So I'm like, that clicked with me, that even the best person has that yes. self-criticism. Yes. We yes. have to be okay with that, because we have to evolve, and the only way we're going to get better is if we suck first and be yes. okay with that yes. until we get better. Mm-hmm. I love it. So tell me, what are you up to? Like, what is your 2021 look like? What do you want to tackle on? What do you want to, like, what's your vision for 2021?
Yeah, so several things. One is for 2021, I am looking to develop some more strategic partnerships. I am of the believer, 1 + 1 = 2, that's great, but I'm a believer of the multiplier effect. And so when you partner with someone else or another organization where there is that true synergy, collaboration, and alignment of the values, then we can definitely have a multiplying impact on who it is that we are training. I've been blessed that in the last 5 years, I've done now probably closer to 400 training seminars, and earlier I mentioned trained well over 12,000 people. Been doing that primarily on my own, but when I can partner with other folks, we can multiply that impact. So strategic partnerships is one thing that I'm focusing on. The other thing too is that I'm actually going to be looking to, in terms of putting together some virtual summits, again, bringing different speakers. And I think there are already people that are already charging this year, but I think in the new year, when you add the quality of the speakers, the quality of the event, and the fact also that people have been doing more, getting used to the online, that I think we can charge. I know sometimes people say, people have Zoom fatigue. No, they don't. You know what people are fatigued? They're fatigued of listening to boring speakers. Because, like I said, when we, in company meetings, pre-COVID, right? Yeah, we were complaining about company meetings. And then what do we do on the weekends? We meet with our friends. How come we don't get tired of meeting with our friends? It's because the chemistry and the environment is different. It's fun. So when you can have an educational summit and the speakers are awesome, it's going to be kick butt. Okay. And then the third thing that I'm looking to do is I've been putting on the back burner writing my book. And so that's what I want to do too as well.
I love it. Those are some great goals and great vision.
Thank you.
Yay. So I want to know what your message is. I always ask this to people, what is it that you want to, how sometimes you're you ever have a conversation with somebody, you're like, God, I just wish they got this, and I just wish they understood this, with love, con amor, what is your message? What do you want to say to people, or maybe see changed, or see advanced? What are your thoughts on just our state of being, our humanity?
Yeah. So, but my message is, don't aim to impress others. Inspire them through your imperfections.
I love
that. Don't aim to impress others. Inspire them through your imperfections. In fact, before you and I got on, you put on some red lipstick. It's just you and I right now. And I mean, I don't care if you have lipstick. I don't care, you got whatever your color of your lips are. Okay. I mean, we know people, they shower, they don't shower on Zoom. That's not what it is. What it is your heart. What's in your heart? What is the message in your heart? And can you connect with other people's heart? That's what's important. I get it. I know first impressions and all that type of stuff. Okay, of course I get that. Yeah, that would be my message.
Look, you told everybody now that I put. No, that's great.
She looks great, folks. Okay, she looks great. Okay?
Thank you. No, I mean, it's funny because, like I mentioned right before we went on, that is when it comes to even social selling, that is something that we want to put our best foot forward. But yet we are going to judge ourselves. So we got to just do the best we can and then roll with it,
Yeah. And I mean, again, I'm not saying that, you look like a slob and all that type of stuff. Because again, we do judge people, first impressions. Okay. True. We do. That is, there is some, attire and so forth. But I think going one way or another, the extremes are not healthy. Okay. Because if you're too, one way, then you're uptight. And it's like, oh my gosh, relax. It's okay. Or if you're on the other end of the spectrum, like, hey dude, come on, comb your hair, okay? Comb that one hair you have, okay? At least something, okay? Put some gel on it. So yeah, but the thing is too that it is this whole, what I believe too is that we're not going to be a fit for everyone out there. We can't make everyone happy, and we have to accept that we're not going to be a fit for everyone, whether it's in sales, whether it's in training, whether it's public speaking. I oftentimes tell people in my talks, listen folks, you're not going to like, all of you are not going to like me. It's impossible. Okay. And I'm okay with that. Don't worry, next month they'll have another speaker. You might like that speaker better, and I'm okay. But when we're done, you're going to know that if you ever reach out to me, whether you like me or not, I'm still going to help you. And that, I think, is important.
I love that. That just reminded me of something like that expectation that we want everybody to like us. Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. We have to ask a psychologist here or something. But I will tell you, and when you and I spoke before, I think there is a cultural aspect to this, and it's the ¿qué dirá la gente? What are people going to say? And I think within the Latino culture, that's been ingrained in us a lot. I think more so with women, okay, than men. But I heard it from my mom, like, oh my gosh, Oscar, ¿qué va a decir la gente? Oscar, what are people going to say? And I remember one time giving my mom a hard time. And I said, Mom, I said, okay, I constantly hear you being concerned about people, what they're going to say. I said, I want to be on the lookout. Can you at least give me the name of one person? So that, if I see that person, I'm like, okay, I'll be careful not to like say the wrong thing. Oh, Oscar, no one can win you on your arguments. It's just nonsense.
Yeah. No, but that is important. I mean, like, that's such a great conversation that's like, we worry so much about what others think, but what about what we think, And
Yes.
I mean, and because that has affected what we think. That's why we're all
Yes.
like, I don't want to hit post because they might judge me, I want to start beginning to change that, building that confidence, right? That's the only solution to that dilemma is to be confident in yourself and develop those tools within yourself that allow you to say, screw it.
Yes.
I wrote a chapter once and it was called F it, the whole word, because we have to decide to screw it, go with it. There's just a lot of things in life that we have to take a chance on. We have to take risks on, and we have to pursue wholeheartedly, not caring and worrying what others think, but also what we think. We can't,
Yes.
Yeah.
And you said something here about about how we care about like posting something, right? And one of the things that I believe in, it's actually John Maxwell. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a leadership trainer and he's written many books. He's actually one of my favorite authors. And I love what he says about leadership. He says leadership is influence. It's influence. And so it doesn't matter, if you are entry level, mid level, or if you're at the C level, you can influence people. And so my point is that through our posts, through our stories, we are influencing people. I get at least once a week a message from someone that says, hey, Oscar, thank you for sharing whatever it was. I love it because I can relate to it. And I look at their profile, I'm like, oh, wow, I had no idea I could relate to this person. But see, through our actions, we are influencing other people. We are leading them, And so, yeah, I mean, again, leadership is influence. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, I think that's so important, it's just the nature of our humanity. We need to start building that confidence muscle. Is there a way to build everybody's different, right? And I think our experiences are all so unique that our lives, we become, what we create. I don't want to say we become what's, part of the society because there is a little bit of that as well, but it's what are we going to do with it? What we, like I said earlier, we all have baggage. It's like, what are we going to do now with it? Because do we wallow, or do we use that to step on and help others and to and share our story with others and to connect with others,
Yeah. For me, I early on after I graduated from college, I embarked on a personal growth and development program, reading a lot of self-help books, CDs, back then cassettes, and stuff like that. And because I didn't like being that shy person, that introvert, I wanted to change. So I had that desire. So you have to have the desire to change. And once you have that desire, then you begin to seek different ways that can help you make those changes that you need to. But so that's, I think, one thing, okay? Get yourself into a personal growth and development program. The other thing too is that to start taking some small steps, some baby steps to get yourself out of your comfort zone. Because that's, again, another thing that I did, just little baby steps, comfort zone. And I'll tell you, a very small baby step, and in the big picture, an insignificant step, but it was a step forward. So if you've ever noticed, when we could go and do live events, or you'd go to an event, usually the front row or the first two rows in the front are empty. Everyone sits in the middle or towards the back. And being an introvert, we observe. So I observed. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So one day I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sit in the front row. So I would sit in the front row, and then I started turning around and looking at the people that I admired, the ones that were the extroverts that I felt had the confidence, that they could just speak up and everything. And they're sitting or standing in the back. And so for me, that was just a little victory, because I'm like, I'm willing to sit in the front while these, other folks are standing in the back. And that little grain of sand of movement, over time, you add more grains of sand, it sets you apart. And so those little baby steps are very important. And the last thing too is that I think it's also important too that I don't dismiss my baggage, my cultural baggage. I think it's important that we, what I refer to as, honor our past, disrupt the present, and embrace the future. Because when I look back at the baggage, the challenge that I've gone through, as long as we learn some lessons, and move forward, that's how it's a positive. It's not a negative. I mean, my dad was an alcoholic. My dad used to beat the crap out of me. My dad never, the only time my dad said something positive was his last year that he was alive. He was in and out of the hospital a bunch of times. And one day I went to go see him, and I had to wear those blue smocks, and the mask and so forth. And I'm standing over my dad at the hospital, and he wakes up and he looks at me and he says, "Blue looks good on you." And as small of a compliment that was, that meant a lot, because my dad never, typical machista. With my son and my kids, that's something that I always told them, hey, I love you, hug him and stuff like that. So again, lessons that you learn from the baggage from the past.
Yeah. That's a great reminder, is like, we know what hurt us. Let's not do it to our kids, and let's change that narrative, going forward. Oscar, I want to talk to you all day. I love your energy. I feel like just want to hug you, and, like we're related, I love your energy. It's so vibrant. It's always so positive. You talk about topics in a way that are digestible. People can grasp what you're saying, and they're relatable, you're so open and vulnerable with what you share. And I think that is, the marks of a good leader. I think being able to do that is leading by example, showing someone that we don't have to be perfect. There is imperfections in all of us, but own it. And owning it is allowing others, like I said before, to do that. And you are a true example, of leadership from all your posts, and I just love what you do. And even in your lives, your LinkedIn lives as well are awesome.
Thank you, Sandra. No, thank you. And I also appreciate what you're doing. And I mean, right, when you connect with someone on social media, in this case, you and I on LinkedIn, you look at other people's posts or profiles. And in my case, I also look at their posts, and I see the things that you're doing. I'm like, oh man, okay. And I know, you don't use this word, but, as Mexicans we do. And, I looked at your stuff and I'm like, oh man, this does bien chingona. Look at her, man. She's over there kicking some butt on the East Coast.
That's awesome. Yeah. I hear that word all the time. I'm like, oh, I want to be like chingona. Like it's just a Mexican term, but yes, that's awesome. Yes. I'm going to own it now. I'm like, no, somebody call me that.
Own it, girl.
I love it. Oscar, it has been such a pleasure having you on. You've shared so much stuff that so many people are going to leave with, you're just refreshing, so many people are going to leave with lots of great nuggets and a good outlook for 2021, a hopeful one, hopefully. And I want to do this again with you, because there's just such great energy.
I'd love to. Nomás me dice cuándo, and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. So how can people connect with you, follow you, and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So again, I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can also on Instagram as Aspira, that's Aspira Consulting Inc., or aspidaconsulting.com as well. And I also do have a podcast, and that's Career Talk with OG. Okay, so people can also follow some information there too as well. But
Yeah.
thank you, Sandra.
You know what you know what's so funny, because when I see OG, like it's original gangster, but I gotta tell you, for 1 second I was like, is that like old guy? Like, I think that's old. I don't even
Oh God.
I'm like, oh, that works. So when you said original gangster, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it's.
Well, obviously, Sandra, you were never in a gang. Otherwise, that's why you didn't get it. Okay, ya sabemos.
I'm old. That's too funny. Oscar, thank you so much. You're so wonderful, and I look forward to doing more stuff with you.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you very much.
You got it.